Welcome, I'm Shane Wilson from the Meditation Learning Center, and this is the Meditation Teacher Training Program of which you are a part of. Some of you are new, some of you have been with for nearly almost a year probably, and some of you will be becoming certified at the end of this module, and like I said, some of you are somewhere in the middle of all of this. Because we have 5 modules and people can start, they have 5 opportunities to jump on board with the program here. And I wanted to welcome you and I'm kind of excited because this is the first module and class 1 of this module, which means that the program has cycled through several times. This is actually our 3rd year, and we're starting from the very beginning. To kind of let you know that the format, the numbering system is just for convenience only, and that module 1, module 2, module 3, they're not necessarily progressive. Although this very first module, this very first class, it's just, I felt compelled to get into the history of meditation, and just like any other book or meditation book you might, course or anything that you might get into, the very first aspect of it is generally the history, like a timeline. And we'll be touching on that in this class, and as well as the definition of meditation and what meditation is and isn't, and also we'll guide you through a meditation. A typical breath meditation, something that you can use right away. And I wanted to mention that some of these classes are live and some of them have been pre-recorded, and with some of the classes there's a combination of several different things happening. There's a pre-recorded section in this very first class that you'll see, and then there's some fresh recordings that are a part of it too. More fresh, I guess you could say. But the main thing about the course is that we're trying to get out as much information and clear information as we can, and whatever it takes for us to get the message out to you so that you can gather the information, learn from it in a very concise and clear way, have fun with it. And we're talking about 60 hours of class time, or of viewing time. There's 30 classes total, and with your practice time and the home study, we're looking at this as a 300-hour meditation teacher training. And the program has, like I said, been in effect for several years now, and it's coming along. We're getting a lot of positive, a lot of positive comments and reviews from it. And the people being certified, I think there's probably, I think close to 100 or maybe a little bit over 100 even that have been certified so far in the course. Most of these people I'm trying to stay in touch with and having pretty good luck with that. And happy to say that just about every one of them is using this information for to help their modalities, and using meditation exclusively for some of them, and the information is working, and people are very confident in getting out there and using it. And it's just wonderful to see. This is something that I really wish I would have had when I was starting out meditating. The way I started, I was studying and practicing in Thailand, and my teacher said that he thought I should be teaching. He sent me on my way. I came back to the States, didn't know what to do or even what to teach. The only thing that I really understood was the things that I learned from that teacher and some previous teachers, how to organize it and how to do it, how to get in there and what to do as far as teaching. I didn't have a clue. I lucked out. I came back to the States. A friend of mine said, "So what are you doing in Thailand?" And I said, "I'm learning about meditation," and I told him my story. And he said, "Well, why don't you come into my yoga studio and teach on Saturday mornings?" And I said, "Okay." I'll do that. So I got very lucky and got my foot in the door, and I taught in yoga studios for a while. And now I teach several times a week at the Meditation Learning Center here, and also at the what is called the AIBMC in Mesa, Arizona, which is a Buddhist center that they built a beautiful meditation hall for us, and they're very thankful for having the opportunity to use the facility to teach there. Been doing so for about 7 years now. But that's just a small little part of my story. I just wanted to get it out there to kind of, to touch base with the new people that I haven't met yet. And the whole thing about this program is just that, to be able to stay in communication. We're using an online platform called YesCourse. You'll find it very easy to use. Some of the correspondence that we will do back and forth is through YesCourse. Some of it is more direct. We can use email, we can text. I do a lot of texting back and forth with the students. Phone calls work pretty well, but as you can imagine, if I'm working with people or meditating, I can answer the phone about 35% of the time. And so I do check my email and text quite regularly. And I'm always here. I'm always here to help out. I'm always here to ask questions and to help out in any way. The program, the platform that we're using, the educational platform, YesCourse, the people that I work with through YesCourse are very, very, very good. They're very helpful. If there's a problem, we get at it right away. They're there to help, and it's been working out wonderfully. Once you get into the program, you'll see how easy it is to use. And we can correspond through there. You'll get emails from me personally. You'll get some emails through YesCourse. And so you want to be sure to allow that to not get into your junk file in your email. Open it, keep it open for YesCourse, and me as well. Okay, so the program is I think you'll find it very thorough. This first class, we're looking at meditation, the history of meditation, the definition of meditation, what meditation is not. We're also going to be guiding you through a basic breath meditation. This is something that you'll be able to use for yourself and for your classes and everything. The video that you're going to be seeing is I kind of apologize, but it's a little bit shaky, and I took a look at it and I was almost considering redoing it, but all of the content is there, and it's a good explanation of the history of meditation. So I thought I would just leave it, and if you don't mind the shakiness, it's the main purpose is that the information is there and that the audio is clear. So bear with the little bit of a shakiness that happened we're changing from one format to another. And so there's a little bit of a shakiness there. So you have to bear with me on that. The one thing I wanted to mention, and it's worth mentioning right away, is that when you see the handout material, you want to copy it off. I got some pages here. This is, a representation of the handout material that you'll receive. But what you want to do is print this off right away and get a hole punch if you don't have one already, and a 3-ring hole punch, and then build your binder. Some people even put these in the individual page folders, the clear page folders, but that does take up a lot of room because you'll have about 300 pages when you're done. It'll be a substantial 3-ring binder, so you'll need something with I think they're like 2-inch hoops, so they have plenty of room to get the pages in there and everything, and then this will be your information for you to keep for the rest of your life, through the rest of your meditation teaching career. and it'll be a book that'll serve you well, as long as it's organized. And the reason I put emphasis on this is because if it's organized, once you do a quiz, and there is a quiz after every module, they're not difficult, but if you're organized, you'll find all of the answers for that quiz in your 3-ring binder. In other words, all the material, all the hard copy material that you should be printing off will contain the answers to the quiz. And this is just something that I feel fair to do, rather than having some secret answers hidden within the video material or something like that. So the videos are primarily dialogue. They're for us to communicate in such a way that I can express and talk, myself and Stephanie Cordell, one of the other teachers, can express our ideas and talk with the people during the live classes and get this across to you the best way possible. In other words, what we're doing is explaining this information here to you, along with PowerPoint presentations and things like that. And so the way we're putting this material across to you, if there's ever any questions or anything you don't understand, please ask. I love questions. I love helping out people. I love getting this material out there as clear and clean and crisp as possible. And if there's any kind of questions or anything, please let me know. With that in mind, I also want to say that you'll find some what are called fun quizzes at the end of each class. You'll see these on the YesCourse educational platform. And those are for just to kind of check your own retention. And they are fun. You know, I'll throw some questions in there that might be kind of under the radar, but they're available. It's something that has been mentioned and things like that. So they're for your own retention, but they're not going to be tested or anything like that. And other than that, I welcome you again to Module 1, Class 1. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll stay in touch, and we can be as tight as you want to make it. You know, but the course is designed for you to be able to have a great deal of freedom and a great deal of liberty as far as time constraints, getting through the material. You can stay with it weekly, which is what I suggest. You know, spend you know, a good hour and a half or a couple hours, probably 2.5 hours per lesson would be ideal, and really stay with it. The most important thing is your personal practice. Your personal practice comes first, and I suggest you practice meditation an hour a day. Anybody that would consider themselves a meditation teacher should be practicing about an hour a day. And but again, consistency in the practice is the most important thing. Consistency, what I'm talking about, is doing it daily. And 10 minutes a day is much better than doing it for 2 hours once a week. So please keep that in mind. To really consider yourself an authority, a professional at anything, it should be done daily. And I think that's particularly true when we're talking about instruction, particularly instruction of meditation. You will build a great deal of confidence. You'll know exactly what you're talking about. When somebody asks you a question about meditation, you'll be spot on. You'll be right there, you know, to help them out. And that's what we're talking about here. So again, welcome, and I hope I didn't get too long-winded here. You'll be viewing the Class 1 in a couple of moments, and then afterwards I will be guiding you through a breath meditation. Thank you, and welcome aboard. I'm looking at the overview of the learning objectives here. So the learning objectives, and there's 8 of them for this class, for the next hour and a half or whatever it might be here. So the objectives is to explain the history of meditation and to define meditation, very important, and to understand the basics of meditation Number 4, to explain what meditation is. Number 5, the 2 basic components of meditation. Number 6, to explain what meditation is not. And number 7, to explain how meditation works. And then number 8, to be able to do and instruct a basic breath meditation. Now, first of all, and I'll explain each one of these in as much detail as possible. So the timeline and the history of meditation is important. There's going to be questions that arise, and you should be knowledgeable history of meditation, how it came about, and hopefully you'll find this information interesting and useful. Generally, when you open up a meditation book, right away there's something regarding the history of meditation. And whether somebody is referring to Buddhism or Hinduism or any kind of the other isms that we might be talking about, it has to do with the history. So we're going to be talking in terms of BC and AC, in other words, the more recent era. But BC, it's important to understand that BC is before Christ. We're using the Christian calendar. So when we refer to how old this timeline is, we're looking at adding approximately 2,000 years, because we're in the year 2014. So let's just disregard the 14 years that we're looking at here. And so when we think in terms of the first timeline here is 13,000 BC, that's 15,000 years ago. We're just adding 2,000 years. Okay, that just to keep things uncomplicated, because some people get confused about the calendar and how BC and AC work out, or BC and AD, so before Christ and after death. So 13,000 BC is the estimated time period, and all of these are approximate dates, mind you. We're just trying to kind of not trying to pinpoint anything, but just trying to get into the general area of when these concepts and these things were explored and discovered. But 13,000 BC was when the earliest inscriptions were found, and these were inscriptions found in caves by what we would probably refer to as cavemen, right? So the caveman made these inscriptions in caves depicting people lying and sitting in meditation postures. And these were probably, these cave paintings were found showing people in the caves, and they were believed to be shamans probably, who most likely were entranced to ask spirits to help them as they ask for help as they made their hunts, as they hunted animals for their substance, for their food. And so there's also speculation that the caveman and the people that lived at that time, hunters and gatherers, gathered around fires at night and used the fires kind of to put themselves in trance. Their language was completely different at that time, and much like we use today, where we sit around a fire and we gaze into the fire, maybe when we're camping or on a camping trip or something like that, and we find ourselves gazing into the fire and conversing with our friends and family, and probably in maybe a little different kind of state of consciousness than we find ourselves in a regular basis, just by gazing into the fire and allowing our awareness to kind of relax. The mind becomes still, the body becomes relaxed, and we find ourselves looking into the fire and just kind of going into maybe some sort of a trance. So meditation, when we look at it in this light, as if you will, is not anything beyond our normal state of consciousness or a normal state of awareness. It's a very natural way for us to still the mind and allow the thoughts to come up slower and us to focus a little bit more intently. And we'll be looking at the aspects of concentration and awareness and how it affects meditation in just a few moments as we go through this. So we go from 13,000 BC to 3,000 BC. So we're time traveling 10,000 years really quickly here. So the earliest recorded writings about meditation occurred in India about 5,000 years ago, which is 3000 BC. They appear in the Vedas, the books of knowledge, and these were originally hymns or hymns that were translated orally, but then they were later written down by the Vedic priests of that time. And we will be talking about this in much more detail as we go into these courses. But these were chants that were performed in rituals, and these rituals were later looked at as a more of a spiritual way of connecting with spirit, as if you will. The rituals were said to be pretty gruesome. They were using a lot of animal sacrifices, and they would actually, I've heard that they would sacrifice horses, and the sacrifices would take days for these animals to actually die. And I think people became more humane as they became more aware and conscious, throughout the years, and this was turned into more of a spiritual connection. And this can be found out if a person would read the Vedas. I'm not suggesting anybody have to read them or anything like that, but we're just going through this timeline because just to point out that meditation has a very, very long history. And it has been used in nearly every culture on earth. And the very early writings of the Vedas first are the recorded history where meditation is first brought up in the recorded history. So we then move on to 600 BC. And this is when Buddhism was founded. But that's not necessarily true, because Buddhism's founder, of course, Gautama Buddha, he had no intention of forming something called Buddhism. He was just out there teaching, and he was a meditation instructor, just like we are, and he had no desire for Buddhism to become any kind of a religion or have these followers, and even to have somebody take on the lineage of him after he died. So he didn't appoint anybody to take on and continue after him, but it happened anyway. So 600 BC, the Buddha, although he had a good life, he realized that not everybody did, and he understood aging, sickness, and death. So he realized that there must be more to life and what happens after life. So he went out on a search, and he became an ascetic. And then from this asceticism, his strength became depleted. He started taking on more food because, being an ascetic, they were taking very, very little food, just maybe one mouthful of food a day, just enough to sustain enough strength to have some kind of awareness, any kind of awareness, because their belief was that the more they deplete the body, or more they allow the body to become depleted in energy, the more spiritual strength that they would have. And the Buddha said, he came to the conclusion that this is not the way. So he took on more food and became more energized, and he realized that he had more energy to meditate, because energy, this spiritual energy and this physical energy, mental energy, he realized was very important. So he found what he called the middle way, the middle path, in his search for enlightenment. And indeed, he made his way underneath the tree, and he sat there for 7 days, 7 nights, and became self-enlightened through the practice of meditation. So, of course, meditation is the primary practice of Buddhism. And when we think of Buddhism, we think of meditation, and also when we think of meditation, we often think of Buddhism. But Buddhism doesn't make meditation, and meditation does not make Buddhism. It's two separate things, but yet they're unified in that that's the primary practice found in Buddhism. So when we look at Buddhism, which we will from time to time in this class, because we almost have to, but this is not a Buddhist class, it's a meditation course, all right? But as you'll see in the next timeline, Buddhism comes up again, 5000 BC. So I'm on page 2 of this course material. 5000 BC, Zen Buddhism was formed about 100 years after the Buddha was born. So this is really looked at as after the Buddha died. And ironically, is that was about the same time that the Bhagavad Gita was written. So Zen Buddhism emerged, and it was really a combination of Buddhism and the Tao, Mahayana Buddhism and Taoism. And it was brought about primarily in China and called Chan Buddhism at that time. That it made its way across the waters into Japan, and that's where the Zen term came up. And then Zen Buddhism is also prolific in Vietnam, as well as Korea and other parts of Asia. So it should be pointed out at this time that Zen Buddhism is Mahayana Buddhism. Theravada Buddhism is another branch of Buddhism that made its way into Thailand, Sri Lanka, and Thailand, Cambodia, down to Malaysia, and also Burma is very, very much a central country that embraces Theravada Buddhism. And that this will all be covered later. So Bhagavad Gita I have a little trouble pronouncing that for some reason today, but was also written around the time 200 BC. And it was arrived by yogic meditation, and it bypassed the thinking process. By introspection and contemplation, the mind is encouraged to go within, beyond itself, stopping processes by looking within and cultivating the witness. So this is a kind of an excerpt from Bhagavad Gita, but it is a mixture of the Brahman Atman aspect that was brought together, kind of dissolving this caste system, and that had such a strong hold in India during this period, where the high caste members, the Brahmins, were the ones that were meditating, and the other people, the lower caste, were believed to really have no right meditating, because they were supposedly didn't have that understanding. But when the Bhagavad Gita was written, this kind of disintegrated that aspect, and the common man was looked at as just as capable as being a meditator as anybody else. So that helped the meditation revolution, if you will, expand and kind of explode at that time period. And again, we'll be talking about this in depth as we go along. So, and again, another 200 years into 2000 AD is the time when the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali were written. And the Yoga Sutras are let me just read the sutras with the simplest efforts at mental discipline. These sutras allow one to move from there to here to attain the heights of samadhi, which is concentration, and then on to the principles of yoga and the disciplines of yoga and miraculous powers. So we're moving into 200 AD. The Yoga Sutras were written, really address meditation as being a part of yoga. That's not that this is not the time when these things were necessarily started, but this is when they were written down and formulated as a process as a uniform kind of a central message of how one can be instructed into reaching different and deeper states of concentration through these yogic practices and through concentration. 17,085, the Bhagavad Gita was translated into English, which was very much an opening of and an introduction to meditation for the Western English-speaking people, particularly in Europe. But it wasn't until the 1960s that meditation was said to have really made its way into the Western thought, in the Western mind, primarily through Zen crossing the big ocean and coming to America, and TM, Transcendental Meditation, becoming such a big force for the people in the West. Many of us remember the Beatles and how they made such an impact when they were reported to have been, and the news caught on to them visiting the Maharishi in India and becoming such a strong force, even though the Beatles really never, beyond George Harrison, never really embraced it a lot. Ringo never embraced meditation to the extent that some of the other ones did. Paul and John tried meditation for about a year, from my understanding. George was more of he stuck with it quite a bit longer. And then other movie stars, Twiggy and some of the other ones that I don't remember offhand, embraced transcendental meditation. And I personally know people that have been practicing transcendental meditation, transcendental meditation for about 50 years now. So it's been around for a long time, and 1960 is usually the date that the West, they refer to 1960 as the date when the West embraced meditation, but actually in some cases it was a little bit before that, 1956, 1957, around those times. So that takes us up to the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, into the present. And now meditation is really a household word. I find personally that people that don't know a lot about meditation get it conflicted a little bit with yoga, these two terms, meditation and yoga, but it's more of a household word, especially along with the word mindfulness. And we'll be talking a lot about mindfulness and the impact that it has on today's different therapies and different ways of looking at the mind. So if you look at page 4, there's a meditation history timetable, and that kind of maybe clarifies things a little bit for us. That's this this timetable here, with the different, I guess you could say, different ways of mapping, the time elements. Sorry for the click. That's probably pretty loud with this microphone. And then that takes us into the definition of meditation, and this is actually the very first course on the quiz that you'll take a look at here when you're done going through this information. It's very important that we have a method of defining meditation. So if you're to look up meditation in the dictionary, you'll find many, many different definitions, different words that describe it. Some of the words that come up might be contemplation, prayer, awareness, consciousness, and especially in today's terminology, and more modern definitions, awareness, mindfulness will come up. The definition that you should really embrace is your own, because there are so many broad definitions, and you can experiment with this. Just Google meditation and see what comes up. It's completely mind-boggling. The word meditation alone carries different meanings for different people, but it comes from the Latin word meditor. That's M-E-D-I-T-O-R, the Latin term, and that means to reflect on or to ponder or to consider. But we don't want to use ponder and consider and reflection as too much of as a definition of meditation, because that connotates that there's this thinking process going on. And that doesn't mean that there isn't any thinking, of course, when there's meditation involved, thinking process could be a part of it. But we want to really look at it, the process of meditation, as not necessarily a time to be thinking, because when we're thinking, what is normally happening is we're trying to fix something. So meditation is not a time to be fixing anything, because that connotates that there's striving and something to be fixed. More importantly, we want to look at meditation as a way to look at the state of mind that is occurring, not that we're trying to occur, in other words. Let me just give you a couple examples, because you'll want to understand what meditation is to such an extent that your definition is pretty much memorized. Because when somebody asks you the question of what is meditation, let's say you're presenting yourself as somebody who is taking a meditation teacher training course. And indeed you are, right? That's why we're here. And you're explaining to somebody what you're doing, and they say, oh, that's interesting. I know nothing about meditation. What is meditation? And you don't want to have to stumble around the fact of what meditation is. You will want to be able to explain to them what it is. And here's an example. Meditation is a practice that is meant to aid in the cultivation of mind. The cultivation of mind. This is done primarily through techniques to improve and use concentration and to produce the conditions for non-judgmental, watchful awareness. So some of the key words that come up are, of course, cultivation of mind, and concentration and awareness. These are some key words that arise here. So one paragraph, basically one paragraph, and again, let me just read that. Meditation is a practice that is meant to aid in the cultivation of mind. This is done primarily through techniques to improve and use concentration and produce the conditions for non-judgmental, watchful awareness. And you might be able to use that. Here's another one that's quite a bit shorter. Meditation is an altered state of consciousness which removes distraction and allows a person clarity and awareness. So there's another key word in there is clarity. And the opposite of clarity would be distraction. So we're removing distraction and allowing a person clarity and awareness. So this distraction and clarity suggests concentration again. So concentration seems to be a key factor in meditation, along with awareness. So this term awareness, in many people's view, is a part of mindfulness. Awareness, mindfulness. Mindfulness could be said to be a part of awareness in that we are being aware of something that we can kind of more closely define as being aware of the body or being aware of the mental activity, such as thoughts, being aware of mind states, for example. So these are considerations for us to take a look at. And again, I invite you to completely explore all of this. So your definition of meditation is really, in many ways, your statement of what you are doing, or what we could say we're taking a look at, what we're studying. So what is your definition of meditation? What is that phrase that defines meditation for you? And of course, this can be changed and adjusted, and it should be, as this clarification comes up and becomes more clear for you. In addition, we will be looking at, throughout this course, looking at the following questions, such as what is your stand on meditation and what it can do for each individual? What is your teaching philosophy? This is all part of the definition. And what is the goal of meditation? What does it do? All right. So that takes us into number 3, the learning objectives. Number 3, still on page 5. And that's the meditation basics. And meditation basics, if you try stilling the mind for 5 minutes and observe your own thoughts, we'll realize that how difficult this can be at first, right? And those that have mastered the art of meditation offer a different variety, many different varieties and techniques to help one meditate and to control the mind. So what we're doing in meditation is allowing one to learn how to control the mind and to change the mind from being focused to being wandering about, and how to change these aspects. So to begin meditation, we need to learn the art of concentration. And when we looked at the definition of meditation, that word came up. Whether we call it focus or clarity of mind, it has to do with concentration to some extent. It could be very broad or it could be very narrow. And generally, when we look at concentration, we're looking at a more narrow focus rather than this broad spectrum. So let's just move on to number 4 right now. So what does meditation do for us? at the bullets here on the page, on page 5, you see that it improves discipline, consistency, which means consistency in the practice. And what that means is that the discipline that is learned is very much like a musician, for example. So if somebody learns how to play the piano or the violin or the guitar or something, some kind of a musical instrument, they realize that with consistency, it's very easy and it just develops on its own. So we want to learn something, even if it's, some of us are very linguistic and we want to learn a language. We realize that if we just set aside a certain time each day to learn this and apply ourselves for a half hour each day, for example, it just becomes manifest on its own. And that's true with learning a course. If we want to become proficient at anything, if we want to become a doctor, we have to apply ourselves usually on a daily basis. And we realize that the more we add to this, just like a bucket of water with a dripping from the faucet into the bucket each day, that pretty soon that bucket fills up. And just like our knowledge of something becomes very full. So consistency is really the key in meditation. And here, in this course, what we're doing is we're learning the philosophy of something. And then we apply the practice, consistency in the practice. And then this wisdom that we learn from both from the theory and from the practice itself fills up this bucket of wisdom. The wisdom that comes from meditation alone is really beyond words. And if we meditate very much as individuals, we know this, and we know how it works. The wisdom through insight, we'll call it insight, and that it becomes a very common word for meditators because we don't know what else to call it. But the wisdom that comes up from that is wordless knowledge, because it's so personal, and it's something that we realize that when we try to use words to define and explain this wisdom, words fail to do that for us. So the consistency in the practice is really king, and it helps us to define the practice itself, and it helps us to become very, very much disciplined in life. If we can become disciplined in something such as meditation, that discipline bleeds into our everyday actions, and it helps with the discipline that we need to become teachers and to help other people also. What else does meditation do? It slows things down. So the thinking process becomes slower. The whole thought process becomes stilled. What we could say, the mind becomes more still. The thoughts arise one at a time, more slowly, and we're able to look at thoughts, one single pointed thought, rather than this barrage of thoughts that come out throughout the day, in our everyday thinking process. So when we close the eyes, go into meditation, the thoughts become more stilled, and seemingly we can work with them. They come up one at a time. Appears to come up one at a time, more slowly. And what else does meditation do? The third bullet, when these watching of the thoughts. These thoughts come up slowly, we're able to see them for what they are, see the truth of what is appearing without judgment. So these thoughts come up without judgment, and actually that's what mindfulness is for us. And we'll be able to see them very much like watching a movie. And that's that watchful eye. We become the witness of the thoughts rather than owning and identifying with these thoughts. Very, very key element of meditation. So to move into number 5, principle number 5 here, what are the 2 basic components that make up meditation? We are really looking at concentration and awareness. When we focus on a meditation object, whether it's the breath or whether it's a candle flame or a concept, there has to be some element of concentration involved. And concentration is key. Again, whether it's broad or whether it's focused, there has to be some level of concentration. And within that concentration, there has to be awareness. We have to, and which is really a part of energy that's involved. We have to be aware of something. So technically, we can be concentrated, but that concentration can be so broad that we can place that concentration on the wandering mind, actually. But we want to narrow that focus down into, like a camera, narrowing it down into like a zoom, and then be able to place that on that concentration and be aware on an object or a subject. So concentration and awareness. So think in terms of that when you come up with your definition. Try to always keep that in mind when you're practicing meditation as well. So that takes us into the page 7. We're looking at number 6 and looking at what meditation is not. And if you've ever experimented with this, sometimes when there's something that's hard to define and hard to explain, sometimes explaining what meditation is not or what the subject is not helps clarify things. And this is true with meditation. So if we look at that, meditation very seldom is anything that we want to add anything to. And it's more of a taking away, because the more we simplify meditation, the more we simplify the practice and the understanding of meditation, the easier it is for people to understand. Let's say this is meditation. If we keep adding things to meditation, it gets very confusing. The mind gets stressed by adding too many things to the meditation itself. So we want to take away and make it as simple as possible. So meditation is not just relaxation of the body. And it's not meant to provide clear thinking. It's not just prayer and contemplation, and it's not only concentration, and it's not only mindfulness or awareness. These are the things that it's not. Indeed, it could. These elements are definitely a part of meditation, but it's not just these things. It's not just relaxation of the body. We can relax the body while we're watching TV, and that's not what meditation is. It's not to provide clearer thinking. That kind of connotates that meditation is a thinking process, and it's not. It's not just thinking alone. There's much more to it. It's not just prayer and contemplation, although we could look at it and say that we could use prayer and not connotation, but prayer and contemplation. We could add those and be a part of the meditation, but that's not only what it is. And it's not only concentration, although in some aspects of or some methods of meditation, like jhana, which we'll explore more in depth, we go into these deeper states of concentration, and we use concentration as pretty much the sole aspect of meditation, but we have to use awareness to get into these states. So again, it's not just concentration, because we can be concentrated on virtually anything and it's not going to benefit us, but we have to use concentration mixed with awareness, or this type of wisdom in order for concentration to be any benefit at all for us. And then, and that kind of leads us into the mindfulness and awareness that we're talking about, this mixture that we have to have in order for it to be beneficial. If we notice that the overviews are numbered, we're looking at the last one, number 8, instructing a basic guided meditation. And the idea behind guiding a meditation, and many of you have done this kind of work before, and it's something that we should be very, very used to doing eventually as a teacher. We should feel very confident and be able to do it at any time, any moment. And a lot of times what we're doing is conveying or reporting our own experience. And so we become very sensitive to what is happening for us. And in doing so, if there's a meditator that is new or that does not practice consistently and is kind of have some questions about what they might be doing or what they should be doing in their meditation, this is how it's conveyed, or this is how it's reported to them, if you will. Now, so in the guiding, what we want to do is let them know that it's very, very simple, that this practice is simple. We're not, last thing we want to do is make it very complicated for them. Any kind of in-depth instructions and something in-depth would have to be, we would want to consider that a special case, a special situation where somebody comes in and asks for instructions in jhana or some other type of meditation that does require a lot of detailed instruction. But like a basic breath meditation, the first thing we want to do is not clutter the mind of the student or the practitioner, but keep things as simple as possible. So we want to give them just some casual reminders about the posture, keeping the back straight, and keeping, maybe keeping the chin lifted, letting them know that if the chin falls down, the back kind of curves as well, in a lot of cases. Sometimes instead of lifting the chin, we want to kind of tuck it, kind of bring it back a little bit. Whatever you feel comfortable with instructing yourself. And but the main thing is to keep the back straight, to keep the energy, flowing. Another thing that we wanted to tell the, particularly the newer meditators is comfort. Allow them to get comfortable. You can, before you even do the meditation, you might want to talk about proper cushions, or assure them that it's okay to sit in a chair, whatever it takes for them to be comfortable. So we don't want to, we don't want to startle them or freak them out or anything like that. Just let them know that they're, we're all human, and we want them to be comfortable so that they can focus on what they're supposed to be focusing on. And that leads us into another area of why we meditate. We want to allow them to take in a little bit of information about why we meditate. Stilling the mind and relaxing the body as a, using it as a stress reduction, and whatever benefits. Whatever benefits that we are familiar with ourselves, those are the ones that we want to convey to the practitioner. There are many, many benefits, and we're going to be talking about that in detail in this module and in many of the other modules as we work our way through this program. Also, we want to mention the object of focus, the meditation object. And if we're doing a breath meditation, like a simple breath meditation that we're explaining here, the object is the breath. And we want to let them know that it's not necessarily the movement of the body, or that could be a part of it. It's not necessarily changing the breath or manipulating the breath like a pranayama kind of practice, which is a different type of practice. And we want to allow them to just bring their attention to some place in the body where they feel the breath and use that as a focal point. And then I'll kind of give them an idea of how they can stay focused on that. Let them know that the attention rests on the breath, and then it moves away, and then we notice that, and then we come back to the breath. And that's perfectly normal, perfectly natural, and to be gentle on ourselves and not to be too harsh with our practice. Make it very, very enjoyable for them when you're explaining it. You can explain it with a smile, but what we're really primarily talking about here right now is how we can incorporate this in the meditation itself, so that here's the situation that we will often run into, okay, is that there's a room of people, and some of them, maybe half, are new, and some of them, maybe half, have been meditating for a long time and might have been coming to this gathering for a long time. So we don't want to have to go through these meditation instructions all the time. Every time we have a weekly gathering, for example, we're going to bore half of them, and we're going to be taking up too much time. So what we want to do is guide them through it and put the instructions right in the meditation and let them know that this is the intention before we start. We can ask if there's any die-hard questions, that they want to ask before the meditation starts. But then let them know that if you're new to meditation, the instructions will be in the guiding, and then there will be a period of silence afterwards. Let them know that this is the case, and let them really relax into it. Some benefits to this meditation and other meditations is the relaxation of the body and the stillness of the mind. And we want them to, as mentioned, to know what to do with the posture, how they can, primarily keeping the back straight, so that we might remind them if they're sitting on the floor, if they want to have a reminder of what the perfect posture looks like, that they can look at. They can look at a statue of a Buddha, with a straight back and the lifted chin. Very centered, very balanced, that kind of thing. And then we want to talk about concentration. Concentration of the mind, what we focus on. How the mental activity works, and that we notice that the tension has drifted away, and then we bring it back again, as mentioned already. And then awareness of the breath and how to focus on the breath. Where do we focus on? And I generally mention to people that this is an area that many people come to, right at the tip of the nose, or between the upper lip and the tip of the nose, where they feel the breath come in. You might feel the coolness as it comes in and the warmth as it leaves. This is a good place to focus on, because you can get very, very, very narrow. You can start out broad, very broad, and then bring it in. Let them know how simple it is. This is a practice that anybody can do, and anybody can do on their own, because that's what we want them to be doing eventually, is to do it on a consistent level. We want the customer, the practitioner, to practice consistently on their own. And then one thing, since the breath is rising and falling, just like their awareness, we want to talk about, from time to time, the rising and falling of phenomena. Remind them that just as every breath is different, every thought is different. It's just like the passing clouds. We're not grabbing on, we're not attaching to anything, we're not chasing anything, we're just letting everything go. And that meditation is a renunciation. It's a letting go more than anything else. We're not trying to collect anything or change anything. We're just trying to see what rises for us, and then let it fall away at the same time. So I hope this helps. Again, the primary thing when I'm guiding, my eyes are always closed, and I'm relating my experience. I've probably guided, short meditations like this hundreds and hundreds of times, but the one that you'll be seeing here, I'm actually reading just to show how simple it can be. It can be very, very simple, and it can be very, very. It could be very, very in depth too. So guiding is a real gift, and the more you do it, the better. And we'll be working on guiding meditation as we go through the program as well. I hope this is clear for you. Basically, what we're talking about is putting the meditation instructions right in with the guiding, so that even a seasoned meditator can have a choice of listening or letting it fall into the background. A new meditator would probably listen to every word. You might even invite them to sit closer to you if it's a group, and so that they can actually use these as instructions for themselves. Okay, thank you. You'll find that this is a very, very basic breath meditation. And the reason it is basic is so that you can build upon it on your own. And I wanted to make it so basic that you remember some of the finer points as far as bringing the person's attention to the breath. Because with a meditation like this, if somebody wants to have a kind of a hands-on experience of what meditation is, maybe perhaps if you're a therapist or something and you're working with somebody and they're excited and you want to calm them down, just ask them to close their eyes and then take them through a meditation like this. It's very, very soothing for virtually for everybody once they connect with this very important part of them, which is the breath. So please do this along with me, and you'll notice that there is some silence afterwards, and that's for a reason. That's very healing in itself, and probably one of the more important parts of the meditation. You could do this with a bell, ringing a bell maybe 3 times to start. I usually, many of you know that I ring the bell 3 times to start and 3 times to end, because oftentimes a person doesn't hear the first bell. If you ring it 3 times, it's kind of a traditional way of, in the Buddhist tradition, it symbolizes the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. But they do it three rings in other traditions as well. I've chosen not to use the bell in this case, just to keep it more natural. So I'm just going to try to read the script here, and I'm not too fond on scripts as far as staying with them, so I'm going to sure be adding a few of my own words. But whether you're sitting, standing, lying, or walking, bring yourself to a comfortable posture with the back fairly straight and the chin slightly lifted. Close the eyes. Feel completely safe and comfortable. Allow the body to relax and allow the mind to become very still. And bring your attention to the breath. Don't try to manipulate your breathing. Just bring your attention to it and notice the breath as it enters the body. Notice if you can feel it at the nostrils. Can you feel the breath in the area of the sinuses, perhaps? Do you notice the breath in the area of the throat or the windpipe? Do you feel the sensation of the breath as the lungs fill and deflate? Can you feel the rising and falling of the diaphragm? Or the movement of the abdomen? Get in tune with the breath. It's most certainly your friend, and perhaps for this moment you can make it your closest companion. Now notice the continual coming and going of the breath. One breath after another. Every breath slightly different than the last. Now let's rest in silence for a few moments and just sit with the breath and notice how it feels. Notice where you feel the breath the most in the body and bring your attention to that place. Take a little deeper than normal inhalation of the breath. Bringing energy into the body. Gently exhale. Do this a couple more times. A deep inhalation of the breath. Waking the mind and the body up a little bit. Gently exhaling. One more time, a deeper than normal inhalation. And a gentle exhale. Thank you. You can open your eyes if you like. Bring yourself back to this room. Now, I ad-libbed a little bit already, and I encourage each of you to do that. Put your own personal feeling into this meditation and any other meditation you do. Try to keep it, your own. Use your own technique. Add your own things. When I don't use a bell, I sometimes, invite people back very slowly if there's been a great deal of silence. In this case, there wasn't. But if there, typically, I would have had that silence last, maybe up to 20 minutes. And depending on the circumstance, and then bring them back gently, and then bring some energy into the body through the breath, and do that a few times. Then ask them to gently open their eyes when they're ready to. Some of the benefits of this and other simple meditations: relaxation of the body, stillness of the mind. And then we mentioned the posture. Already we're working with the proper posture, primarily keeping the back fairly straight, so the breathing is more continual and easier to do. And also that we can generally, if somebody's real sensitive to energy, they can feel the energy flowing up and down the body much more if the back is straight. We're working with concentration of the mind, the focus of mental activity. Awareness of something very simple. We're talking about the breath and the sensations of the breath, where we feel the air actually caressing the body in many cases. And simplicity of the practice, very simple practice. We want to point that out to new students, how simple it can be, but how beneficial it can be. And so that anybody can do this on their own. And then also pointing to the correlation or the connection and the rising and falling of phenomena. So we said, look how each breath is different than the last one, completely different. Each breath coming in on its own and then leaving on its own. And so what we're pointing to is we could take that into the area of thoughts, feelings, sensations, moods and emotions, all these different things that come up for us. We notice them and then they fall away again. And that way, if we're working with somebody that has fear or anger, for example, we can point to them that they don't have to identify with this, that it's changing, constantly flowing through their consciousness and just coming to their awareness and falling away again. So I hope some of this has been beneficial for you. Everything that we touched on is very important. Again, I kind of apologize for some of the video, and like I said, we'll be mixing up the video. There will be some good, clear videos and some things that have been recorded before, some things that have been recorded in different locations throughout the program, such as incorporations and leading meditations in different areas and things like that. And so every video and every experience is different, just like the coming and going of the breath. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you very, very much again for being a part of this program. Thank you.